as at least exciting in terms of the comeback in Game 1 and the near comeback in Game 2.
But that's 2-2-0s for Samsung, which is already a big step up from last season. But it's important to note who it was against. It was against EM Fire and the Afrika Freaks, who are now looking like a team that might be on the bottom half of the roster. That's a good first week for them in terms of scheduling. But next week, that opposition really levels up.
Yeah, it gets a lot harder. So what, Longju and SK Telecom next week for Samsung. So yes, they've won all of their games so far, but that is likely to end. We'll see how they do against much tougher opponents. And one of their opponents will be playing right now. It will be our next match of the night, SK Telecom versus Jin Air Green Wings. And we'll take a look at the Jin Air Green Wings first on this side of the arena.
Yep, no changes in the lineup from what we saw a couple of days ago. They do have Sowan, who could potentially play. Of course, he played in Game 2 of their series a couple of days ago. But Trace, Winged, Kuzan, Pilot, and Che is who they're fielding, at least in Game 1.
I think that when they played with Trace, it was a much more competitive game. And yes, they've got a lot of kinks to work out. Winged had a pretty poor day on the whole. And Trace, he at least kept things competitive. Their shot calling looked better. Of course, he is the longtime veteran, one of the oldest players we have in Korea.
And look, they were convincingly beaten by Longju, and they're going against SKT, so you might instantly think, oh boy, it's going to be a tough day for them. And it might prove to be that, but SKT, they're returning to their esports ruining ways, because it's not the lineup you might expect coming out of SK Telecom.
No, it isn't. We will see two of their substitutes in for at least Game 1 of this series. It will be Scout and Blank. Their sub, mid, and jungle coming in to start this one. Blank was in China for a Starhorn Royal Club. He actually did temporarily play a few games while Insect, after he broke his leg.
After Insect did a little bit of jumping off of bleachers and broke his leg.
His failed Pantheon ultimate.
Yeah, the Grand Skyfall was not working for Insect. And Scout, of course, had his competitive debut during the Kesper Cup in one of the losses against EVA, so he must be the only SKTT1 player ever, even including Reaper's days, to have a 100% loss record on the team.
That's probably true, actually. So Scout coming in, we'll see if he can do better. He looked like a solo queue player in the games versus ever.
He farmed on Gangplank, got caught a couple of times. It wasn't a representative sample. He's going to want to show something different in Blank. Both these players, very tender ages, both of them still 17 for at least a few more months. So you're taking out games and years of experience from SK Telecom. What do they look like as a five-man unit when you take away Bengi and Faker's hundreds of games in competitive play?
Yep, that'll be interesting to see how these two fare. Both of them are 17 years old, so very young as you can be, and be in the booth here in Korea playing professionally. But if you're SK Telecom, you might as well just try and use some of your new talents in a match that you are pretty confident you are going to win.
And you have to assume they're grooming them together if they're bringing both of them in at the same time. Maybe they will be a mid and jungle duo of some repute in the future, but very early days in both their careers.
That's right, so we'll see what Jin Air can do, fielding what is probably their best roster that they have, and Sowan still looking like he needs some time to develop as a player, and Trace, perhaps not as flashy mechanically, perhaps not the biggest champion pool, but maybe we'll get to see his top lane Graves. He loves to play teleport Graves in solo queue.
It feels bad that we're ragging on the guy who built Medjai's in his only game so far on stage this season, but neither Trace nor Sowan look like the answer to the top lane woes of Jin Air so far.
We'll see how it goes. Gangplank and Fiora, not too surprisingly, the first bans. Rek'Sai actually taken out.
Good news, Scout's going to play a new champion this game with Gangplank banned away. He says in his pre-match notes that he's feeling a lot more comfortable playing Assassins. Also, interestingly, he actually gets a bit personal and says that he learned a lot more from EasyHoon than he did from Faker, and he's basically molded himself on EasyHoon. So maybe the esports ruining is going to have some legs, Monte Cristo.
Well, that's very interesting considering that his favorite champions are LeBlanc and Zed, which
noted EasyHoon champions. Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. We'll see how Scout is developing his champion pool for sure in this game. Lysandra going to be the ban, and then a Rise.
Cast blank a few times in China. He looked strongest on Jarvan, which is obviously a very edge meta champion now, but been practicing a lot of Rek'Sai and solo queue, and also played 3 competitive games on Rek'Sai, so I'm putting my money on Rek'Sai when we eventually get to jungle picks for SKT.
How do you feel about Lulu in the mid lane, Papa Smithy? Because that's probably what it is going to be, and you really can't blame them for drafting this way. If you have Scout in, to minimize risk, just make him play Lulu and have Bang carry the team.
Well, that's the thing about SKT. When EasyHoon played in the roster, they became so much more Bang focused, so many Vayne hard carry games. Even Bang's mindset noticeably changed as he would be tumbling aggressively into fights rather than just playing the cleanup role that having Faker in your lineup affords you. So, yeah, Lulu in the mid lane. I thought farming on Gangplank would go well, but of course they lost that game, so SKT have always been really smart at playing around Lulu, and Bang, definitely the veteran carry to rely on.
And Alistar, of course, powerful in this meta, and certainly Wolf's best champion.
Oh boy.
So the Graves is coming, and yes, it's a flex pick, everybody.
Flex Graves, not with AD carry.
Not with AD carry, certainly not. It is a flex pick between jungle and top lane for Janair. And that's what I really want to see, Papa Smithy. I want this top lane Graves. So here's what you do. They got the Trundle too. They can flex that one. It's very unclear what Janair's doing. I love
Misfortune, I guess, maybe could go mid, but she's going to be AD carry, let's be real.
She'll be AD carry.
Looking for some picks on the SKT side. I don't think they're going to show their potential mid laner at this point. They do have the Lulu flex of their own.
And we could see perhaps a Kindred coming in Blank's first professional game, and a Tom Kench from Duke. We saw how strong SK Telecom can be with that double AD carry composition in their first series of this season.
They do lock in the Lucian. This will, of course, be reminiscent of their famous playoff game against CJ in Champion Spring last year, where Bang went crazy on Lucian in a single damage comp. And they do lock in the Tom Kench. I guess they could be flexing from support, but from everything we've seen, we're definitely expecting Tom Kench top and Lulu mid.
Yeah, and also you'd have to believe that they're going to have Kindred as an AD carry pick in the jungle, just because you need some sort of other damage threat on this composition besides the Lucian.
It won't be all eggs in the Bang basket, but pretty close to that. Siege League of Legends, double AD seems to be the name of the game, and double AD with Alistar, Tom Kench as your front line, Lulu to just enable Bang to be all over a team fight. It's SKT returning to what did them so much justice in the first game of this the split against CJ.
Yes, so we're ticking down now on the last couple of picks.
Let's all play AD carries.
Everyone gets an AD carry.
EDG lost with similar comps. Let's just do what they were doing.
Yes, I love it. Top Graves, we get to see it. This is what I wanted.
One for you, and one for you, and one for you. We've already got 5 AD carries potentially coming out this game if we do see the Kindred, and we probably will.
We probably will. It's really the only champion that makes sense with SKT's composition. So if we didn't see the Kindred, it would be quite surprising. But Tom Kench, Lulu in the late game, I'm not sure how Janair is actually going to kill anybody.
They've got Trundle.
They have? That's true. They do have Trundle.
Now, Trundle doesn't work so well against Duke just because the health nature of how the gray health works will be hard, but it's the best option they have.
Well, very interesting. Trace gets to debut his top Graves, which he has been spamming in solo queue. Will this be a new way to play Graves? He is the only one in the world that I have seen do this.
Top Graves, Sneaky does it on stream, but obviously when he's just filling in roles, you can understand he is a bruiser. It's why he's so good in the jungle. Obviously, I feel like his skills aren't as suited to a long lane, but man, Tom Kench versus Graves as a solo lane.
Well, especially because you have such poor control over the minion wave pushing.
That's not true. You can push it a lot.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
That's it. That's all you can do, though.
Yeah. You can miss CS, I guess.
I mean, yeah, so it's going to have to be some fancy jungling from Wing to keep Trace safe. But a very strong 2v2. Graves Lee Sin will be a potent combination, and Duke will have to be careful if they do end up in that 1v1 early. So exciting times. SK Telecom once again rolling with the Tom Kench. They got them a big win, mixing it up a little bit. They played Corky and MF in that game. Now their second AD carry in the jungle in the form of Kindred.
How can you not be hyped? Scout and Blank in the game, 5 AD carries over 2 teams, a Lulu to speed some of them up, Tom Kench potentially to be a buzzkill. There's a lot going on, it's only game 1.
Exciting. Well, we are going into game 1 now. Jin Air versus SK Telecom. SKT looking for their second win, Jin Air for their first. SKT rolling out of the base, not showing anything new strategically really, but they played so well with this Tom Kench, and Duke was pretty amazing in that first series that they had to start off the season.
How much does that SKT name or that first performance really map to such a drastic shift? You're taking literally both dual world champions out of the roster. There's only 2 of them ever, and they're both on the bench.
That's right, SK Telecom. An embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, you guys can just sit out this one.
We don't need you.
We don't need you.
We have Scout. Well, Scout on a very different style of champion than in his professional debut in the Kespa Cup, but this is his rookie champion season. And I guess they are going to want to use him in some of these matches. I didn't expect to see him quite so soon, Papa Smithy.
I didn't either. Especially given Faker's level performance, as expected just a couple of days ago. Scout's tender age and the fact that he lost his competitive debut, but SKT, if anything, have always been committed to using their whole roster.
Well, here we go. Invade. They're going to find Jin Air in the brush.
Bang actually had level 1 E. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So, does do a little bit of damage right there, but not going to get a whole lot.
Means that they're probably going to actually struggle to get level 2 first.
Yep.
Less minion wave control if you don't take Q first.
And Wolf is getting whacked a few times. The Trundle Bat. And trying to trade with that Thunderlords, but not doing too terribly much to Che early, and they will have to play on the back foot for a little bit. So Trace with the top lane Graves. Now Trace has been known for weird top lane picks in the past. He did bring a lot of prominence around the world to top lane Morgana and the pressure, minion wave pressure play that he had with that particular champion. And Graves in a similar boat, you kind of can't help pushing the lane because his auto attack is AoE after the switch to his abilities.
But it's more than that, Monster. So remember that it also pushes minions and monsters back as well. So. And when it comes to last hitting, you also have to move yourself around the minion wave because, of course, your auto attack stops at the first minion you hit. So there's a lot of interesting, weird mechanics about it. Maybe there's hidden skill cap that we haven't considered around controlling waves as Graves. But the first thought is what we see on the screen, which is push, push, push.
Pushing.
But to be fair, a champion that struggles heavily with pushing it, especially early, is Tom Kench.
Yeah. Not going to have very much wave clear, but it does put him in a vulnerable position. But we see from the pathing of the jungler's wing starting to move up there at 3 minutes, taking the Scuttle Crab because he knows the push is coming. He will have to ward very defensively, and you can see their game plan is get those wards on the top side early, have the Lee Sin here, and able to protect Trace, and he's going in with a Raptor buff. Looking to see if he can take anything, and nope. Oh, it spawned right then.
Cruel.
That is cruel.
Winged will feel hard done by when they're doing some VOD review of this game afterwards. And
1
Blank.
second after he throws his Q.
We talked a lot about Scout. Blank deserves a bit more discussion. He has played 8 games in the LPL, so he has played 8 games at a high level. Purely on tanks. It was 3 games Rek'Sai, 3 games Jarvan, which is kind of his signature pick, and then I believe Sejuani, another champion, another tank. This is a very big shift now. He's now expected to play a jungle carry in Kindred.
Yeah, and he has to deal damage because if he doesn't, SKT is going to be in a lot of trouble. Wing does eventually complete his Krug stealing, his Krug thievery.
He is able to notice that the Krug, only one of them, because of course the other one hadn't walked back to the camp yet, was missing. So extra information for Duke to not die.
Trace going to back off for an early recall now as Winged heads back and to base himself, so not playing with fire right there, right as the crabs and the wards expire. Teleporting back into lane, Trace now with 2 long swords and a pink ward to try and deal a little bit more damage and keep him safe, respectively.
His itemization is pretty similar to what we see out of Jungle Graves. Priority on items like Maw of Malmortius and the Sterix Gauge. Ghostblade is what you want to build if you want to output damage. You don't really look to build, say, BF sword items out of top lane or Jungle Graves, but you do have that flexibility, just depending on if you get a snowball going.
So Wing will clear out that ward with the help of a pink right next to his own Raptors. Takes one camp and then once again moves into the top side of the map. Blank just happy to farm right now, but it's going to be tough. That Graves is proving a pretty consistent threat at the moment. Scout actually taking a very bad trade in the mid lane from Kuzan.
Corki does so much damage. We've said it off air multiple times, especially in mid lane. Harkens back to the early days of League of Legends. Before there was even a meta established, Corki was considered a mid-only champion just because he scaled with levels and items just about equally. Once you get those rockets, your lane control goes so much higher, and even in the mid lane, it's unfamiliar territory for Corki, but a lane that he does excel in.
Yeah, look at that. Top tower already chipped down to half at 6 minutes. So this really working for Jin Air, and without much proactive jungling from Blank or really any threat on the top side.
Oh my god. This could be Trace's debut damage Rengar. It could be Rengar, but no, it's Graves, and he's got the standard Quadra longsword.
You need 4 swords to hack away at the towers, Papa Smithy.
Those turrets. Now, you do take slightly reduced damage from the Graves auto attack, because remember, he's effectively buckshotting on every auto. If he gets into melee range, he does chunk turrets. Now, if you compare it to an attack speed steroid, it's about similar, but regardless, if he gets any free time with turrets, they explode.
I love this. Trace has always been such an interesting player to watch. He has had very obvious weaknesses, but he is quite creative at times, and he's very good at map awareness and understanding when he can put pressure on without getting ganked.
But this is exactly not a Trace champion. Remember, Trace was the master in 2015 of not dying to ganks. He was always defensive-minded. Champions like Malphite and Maokai were in his purview. It feels like he spent the offseason just putting those big boy pants back on and pushing. Graves can only go one way. You mentioned it already. He can only push and create map pressure rather than avoid ganks.
That was the Morgana way of doing things, though, to be fair.
Sure, that's fair.
So he did have that, and you mentioned to it, you made a reference to his Rengar. How did Trace come into the professional scene? He was known as a lane Rengar player when lane Rengar was off meta, and he drew 1 million bans.
And remember, this is after the tank Rengar days. This was just pure damage Rengar in the top lane, which is, of course, the curse of solo queue right now.
Is it?
Yes. Korean solo queue and the world solo queue is not looking forward to more damage Rengar, but thankfully not represented in this game.
Well, he's really not very viable in the professional scene. Okay, so here we go, and there is Che falling prey to a brush gank, but Che also just going to pop his ultimate, hits 6 first, and so does get a little bit more tankiness, takes a bad trade there, does Pilot. So a little bit of aggression, Blank getting at least a flash out of that bottom side, but meanwhile, Trace's mindless pushing is causing Duke to still have quite a few problems.
He's just in a world of hurt because he can just never leave lane or will instantly lose his turret.
Well, fortunately, he does have ults now, so that's a faster way to get himself back into the fray. But there's just been nothing. I mean, Trace is at a free lane, and he's nearly killed this turret pre-10 minutes.
That's purely going to be from times when Duke's left the lane, because otherwise, if Duke's standing in front of the turret, he cannot actually do any damage to the turret.
Yep, and wave clear now, coming through strong as that Q is close to hitting that max rank.
Such a surreal thing to call an auto attack wave clear. He literally just, his auto attack is wave clear. That's what he does.
Yeah, you can see Duke right there just trying to stay in front of the turret, so Trace is not going to be able to get quite as much damage down, but the minions are doing work ever so slowly. And here's Trace, catch the wave, cue the wave, push the turret. So now Blank is taking an interest in the top side.
And look, the only way you can spend those 4 longswords, of course there's lots of ways, but that's going to be a Ghostblade. That's basically Ghostblade components in a nutshell. Just two recipes, well, 3 recipes.
I mean, even in the jungle, after you complete your warrior enchant, you're going to be probably going for that Ghost Blade first. And then, you know, like we saw in the Callista in the last game, building probably a Youmu's and then Sterix after that.
Yeah, probably no need for more, at least. If you think about it, Duke does do quite a bit of magic damage, and of course Scout is purely magic damage, but not crying out for a more Malmortius, even though it itemizes really nicely on a champion that gets those resetting resists. Blank. Gonna be spotted out by a ward.
Yep. Easily seen.
Ah yes, ganking the mid lane Corki. A very high percentage. Mid lane Ezreal, mid lane Corki.
Especially with heal and flash up. Really going to be making some waves there. I mean, Winged hasn't even really paid attention to this top side in quite some time. He's been sitting, Trace has been sitting there with just a pink ward in the river, but no one has even really made an attempt on that top side. Blank finally figures out that there is a pink ward here. Although, Duke probably should have informed him that that was placed there quite some time ago.
All right, does he have the Ghost Blade already? The answer's no.
Close.
Just double recipes and some boots to push more.
I love boots for pushing more.
Boots are pushing.
Yeah. Not going to use his TP. Duke has his nearly off cooldown. And everyone just going to stroll back into the top side. Trace taking it easy. There's no need to push more apparently right now.
Well, first thing we learn about SKT when you take Bengi and Faker out is that you get farm wars. Because that's all we've got in this game. Remember, the last time we saw double AD from SKT, they were crushing CJ, pummeling them into the ground.
Yeah.
And now we're Farmville.
Oh, Bang has gotten a pretty noticeable lead in the bottom side, though, despite of the laning fortune of Mistrengths. And here's Trace.
Yeah.
That was super exciting. I'm pumped. 11.5 minutes. The top lane Graves doing some work, and now the package has been delivered to Kuzan.
But you notice that the person that was always playing around the package, and yes, I said that out loud.
Uh-oh. Trace now looking for a gank here onto Scout, seeing if they can find an opportunity, but Scout smarter than Sky when it comes to Corkis with packages, returning to lane. He backs off instantly, not knowing where Graves is. He won't fall prey to an easy trick, an easy gank.
And it was noticeable that Sky didn't play around Corki's passive very well, but crucially, every time that Corki was coming back to lane in that game 1 of the SKT CJ series, Bengi always pathed around mid and was ready for a gank. Now Rek'Sai versus Kindred, obviously different types of junglers, but if you're always there in mid, more time than not, you will be able to either chunk out the enemy mid or get something going. And this time Blank was nowhere to be seen. This time Winged was nowhere to be seen around him.
Nope, but Blank will be seen directly in front of the dragon, killing it, as Bang and Wolf have done an exceptional job of controlling this bottom side and putting Pilot and Che mostly in a defensive posture for this game. Farming up will be Winged for the most part. Is going Warrior Enchant on Lee Sin. So we're going full glass cannon here, Papa Smithy. They're relying on a Trundle ult to be their tank, but Winged hasn't made use of this Warrior Enchant quite yet.
Worth knowing that Graves, despite being an AD carry, functions as a bruiser, given the quick draw. If you can do it multiple times in a team fight, gives you extra resists, and no match but for these two tanky damage dealers is the Rift Herald.
I love it. Giving the Rift Herald to Trace for more excellent pushing power.
He's having trouble with minion control, so really needed the Rift Herald to help him out.
The buff trying to push Duke forward. Duke has smartly bought a Sunfire cape first, just to at least somewhat combat the pushing power.
Yes, combat the pushing power of the Graves with Rift Herald.
Well, you do what you can, right?
Yep.
Meanwhile, Kuzan, a healthy farm lead so far over Scout, getting quite close to completing that Trinity Force, and he'll find a few more autos onto this turret.
Not quite the lopsided turret damage graph that there was in the previous game, but obviously Lulu a lot more wave clear. Harder to chip out that mid turret.
Blank is seen on the side and zoned out with the help of a Trundle Pillar, while Scout eats a big one on his retreat.
Another thing you say about Corki.
Interesting. But here's Trace with his Rift Herald, and here is the entire Jin Air crew zoning you out with the Trundle Pillar and taking your tower.
I feel like Graves is based. Here we see Trace doing the solo queue strategy of winning lane, then winning other lanes, being like, all right, push this lane too.
Hey, it works. I really like that Jay moves into the mid lane. They've got all these AD carries, so use the Trundle Pillar just to push people off and take another turret. That's 2 turrets for none, and a 3,000 gold lead now for Jin Air at sub 15 minutes. So they are just winning this sort of farm war that's happening, and it's up to Bang and Wolf, who are basically the only lane that's winning right now on SK Telecom, to start making something work, but they have barely any turret damage on that bottom side.
This reminds me so heavily of GSG's Heimerdinger fast push strat, because this is a fast push strat. It's literally what it was.
Yep.
Graves bought as much AD as he could for literally the cheapest possible, filled his whole inventory with AD to push, and then they managed to outpush Lulu mid and get a 15-minute mid turret from a Lulu.
Yeah, with 0 kills too, which is perhaps the most impressive thing coming in, because we almost never see these turrets go down on this patch without kills happening first. So very nicely done by Jin Air. Che finding a time just to sneak away and take out that turret. And the siege is just going to continue. MF, you could use that ultimate to zone people off. Tons of poke damage. And the triple AD carry threat with the disengage from Trundle means that as long as Jin Air chooses not to fight, they will be in a good position to just repeatedly take down turrets.
Look, they can fight in the near future where they're going to have this gold lead. Already the global gold turrets in the 2016 season provide so much gold globally that everyone's benefiting from these 2 turrets being down. Gold lead is purely from turrets.
Yeah, and SKT, they're in a situation where the only person that can engage is Wolf. Normally you'd say, oh yeah, well Duke, he could ult in behind and try and take them out, but who is Wolf, or who is Duke going to take back into the back line with the Abyssal Voyage? There's no one he can take with him that is not going to immediately die.
Lulu, I guess, could ult herself in the back line.
Yeah, that's, I think, very optimistic.
Sure.
Sure.
Sure. Another question is, who do you focus on the side of Jinna? I guess Misfortune, just because she's got no reposition, but target selection, it's going to maybe have to be closest target, just because they've got 3 high damage carries on the side of Jin Air.
I love the fact that Jin Air decided to pull out this strategy
just
against
randomly
2 less experienced players, too, because this is not something you're going to see in solo queue. And so, at this point, you're getting yourself a big mental advantage, because I'm pretty sure Blank and Scout do not know how to appropriately react to this situation. And it makes it easier for you to pull out a win.
So much the communication in these situations needs to be shouldered by mid and jungle. And these are the 2 young 17-year-olds with less than 10 games competitive experience between the 2 of them, replacing 2 players with what? Conservatively, hundreds of games of experience?
Yes.
Never played as a duo before, apart from obviously scrims and solo queue environment. I said it randomly, but maybe very calculated that you bring on the strong cheese.
I love it. Well, the upside for SK Telecom is if they can hold out long enough, the Jin Air composition is going to be pretty squishy.
Who is going to kill 6 armor items, Duke?
Yes.
This is the question.
Well, Kuzan will be dealing mostly magic damage, so at least they have that going for them.
But Corki was never a tank shredder, especially to 6 armor item, dude. He's got 1, but 2, I guess.
You know, with the wild growth on him, too.
Good luck with that.
So Duke at least farming up well in the interim, has, of course, decided to get those Ninja Tabby under the current circumstances. Definitely a wise idea.
Seeing Graves rotate around bottom lane.
He got, Wolf is actually stuck in the wall right there. He can't escape, has to pop his ultimate. Trace is just going to go into the fight with a teleport, nearly kill Blank. Blank will get finished up after getting kicked out of Lamb's respite. Now Wolf trying to escape on the side. Duke doing damage, but he is nearly dead himself. Trundle Pillar actually not enough to zone out Wolf right there, so they get 1 kill, but can't get any more. Dragon is alive, so Jin Air will just transfer to that objective instead.
Wolf was literally stunned for 6 seconds while the Trundle Pillar was live.
Yeah, that was definitely a bug, and definitely not good. He couldn't do anything besides pull in that situation. So he wasn't technically stunned, he was more just...
effectively stunned.
At least he could pull.
Well, the only ability I believe that functions like that in League of Legends is Amumu ult, because you can cast spells when you're ulted. So, yeah, 6-second to Mumu casually. Are you sure it's a bug? Maybe it's a feature, Monty.
Oh, is that what we're calling them now?
Features.
Nice. There are no more bugs. There are only hidden features. Well, that'll extend the lead as the first blood goes on to Wing. That was a nice Lee Sin play that he had to deal with the Kindred, who was nearly instantly exploded by Trace, but dropped his ult, falling to Lee Sin kick Q combo in the end before he could get the heal.
And you were looking for the tank. It's Graves. He's got the Sterex gauge. Obviously not the most tankiness, but hitting close to 5 levels in quick draw. 30, I believe it's 30, maybe 40 resists. I think it starts at 20 and goes up 5 a level, so that'd be 40 resists that can reset 3 times. So a lot of potential tankiness, and then obviously the effective health and health scaling of the Sterex gauge means that it's very hard to kill a Graves, just because the moment that you instinctively walk away thinking you've secured a kill on a Graves, never do that. You need to pummel him into the ground, or he will keep living and keep doing damage.
That sounds very scary. You just can't keep a Graves
Have
down.
you seen Graves? If you've played him, the one thing I can say, he's pretty scary.
Oh, nice zone there actually from Chase. So they're going to get some free time on this turret. Have to use the culling and the spooky ghost to push them away. Jay has been doing a very good job this game of landing the pillars in the right places on these sieges. Duke licking his chops at that while looking at that turret, but he can't get there in time to deal any damage. Just has to back off as Jin Air retreats.
Armor item update, 3 out of 6 for Duke.
It is just a waiting game for SKT. There is a very clear way, like you said, Papa Smithy, to defeat the cheese.
It's a hilarious thing that in a game with 5 AD carries, it feels like the old Dr. Mundo waiting for the Thornmail days, where eventually double AD would be outscaled by a Mundo with Thornmail, and Tom Kench, when he hits Thornmail, he's going to be laughing at damage.
Yeah. Well,
Trundle will help them, but just the sheer amount of health.
yeah, it's definitely not going to be enough.
No.
Definitely not going to be enough. But Jin Air, they've stalled out. They quickly got down the outer ring of turrets. They have defended all of theirs in turn. But because of that first dragon from SKT, they're a long ways out from a 5th dragon stack, and they need to put together some sort of deep warding and continuous siege.
I need to point this out. Lucian has captain's boots.
I saw that.
Early captain's boots. And the only way to understand that is that he's going to be at the front of the fight with Whimsy, like he was in that famous CJ game, and theoretically speeding up everyone else to charge in with him.
Also, the first item, Ludens from Scouts, after picking up the Frost Queen's claim.
I think that's pretty standard. It gives you that instant wave clear. I've seen it quite a lot. Maybe not as a first item, but it is.
Yes, I agree with it later on in the build, but
But if you think about it, this is effectively Athene's into Ludens, because he's already got Frost Queen's claim. So he's got his mana regen slot taken. The first AP item, if you're building a Needs Large Rod, I would expect to be Ludens. So what about it surprises you?
I think it's right in this circumstance where it is just a waiting game, right? And I agree that the wave clear does make it attractive, but not certainly something that's too terribly standard. Wolf actually getting caught out, has to flash over the wall. Once again, another Che really showing up with some nice pillars.
Not that much skill cap to Trundle, but the pillars can be game changing. We already saw the one against the wall, irregardless of the semi-stun, was still very nicely positioned, and he's annoying Troll, this one.
Yes, he is. And here we go, once again, grouping in the mid lane. Here comes Wing, coming from the side, Blank, jumping forward for a little bit of damage, but doesn't get a whole lot done. Now Duke joining the rest of his teammates. There's not enough pressure in the side waves yet for Jin Air to really drive this siege home, and they may have to break apart once again.
And we return to your question of just who will go on an Abyssal Voyage with Duke. I mean, Duke himself has maybe gone for 1 this game, maybe off screen, but as you mentioned, there's just not a lot of dive with Duke, so if he's just standing under turrets, he's going to be watching ranged ADs do damage to his structures.
Yeah, they aren't getting a whole lot of damage done for the time invested. A little bit of poke here and there, but certainly not enough. I'm a bit surprised Pilot has been afraid to pull the trigger on just using his ultimate to zone them off. Kind of have to be aggressive with that under these circumstances where your primary goal is not to deal with the team fights, but just to push them off a turret and continue to balloon your gold lead.
Gold lead right now sitting at 4,000, which given the kind of one-note nature of Jin Air's comp, probably isn't sufficient. Duke's probably going to build a Spirit Visage. Not so much for the magic resist, but just for more healing from his health regen and other factors.
So back to wave clearing.
Worth noting that Kuzan has gone for pretty atypical Corki build. We usually see Essence Reaver as a second pickup. When we saw AD Corki a couple of days ago, was interestingly into a Zeal item. It was actually the Rapid Fire Cannon as a second item, but Infinity Edge, it's mostly about single target damage.
Yeah, that's quite curious, considering they need more magic damage, if anything.
Now, this is literally a one-shot build. If you face check this Corki and he gets a Trinity Force Infinity Edge crit, you will die instantly. But it's a very greedy build, an expensive one, actually, from Kuzan.
Well, at least they have a little bit of extra money to power that up.
This is literally finding either blank or bang out of position and just killing them instantly before Lamb's Respite can even be channeled.
Well, back to the Dragon for number 2 from Jin Air. They quite easily carve it up with all the damage that they've got. And turn back around to see if they can get some poke damage on SKT, who has somehow found their way to the mid-turret. This is not a good sign for Jin Air.
Taking the inside track, Trace has teleport.
See if they're going to go for it. Spooky Ghost pop just as a way to get out of the situation. Bang going to land the culling for about 50% of Kuzan's health. Trace and Duke still going at it in the top to very boring results.
One thing I really want to see is Bang picking up lifesteal. We talked about why champions like Lux came into the meta. It's about burst, not being able to be negated by just popping into the jungle and lifestealing off camps. I think you need lifesteal here if you're Bang, just because any free time on these turrets is massive, massive structure damage from Jin Air.
And there you go. Speaking of free time, nearly taking out that mid-tier 2 at long last. Abyssal Voyage, Duke gonna come in, get chomped, and then back right out. He's trapped by the pillar, and Blank taking a chunk of damage.
Now Che instantly ulted him. It's run out at this point, so that is not available to be used on Duke, at least for the next 30 seconds or so.
What engage options do they have realistically? There's very little HP left on this turret, and they only need a couple more autos, but they do enough not to get them winged. On the other hand, he gets found out by Scout, has to hop over to the ward. He's going to need to flash over into the river brush. So he's escaping for the moment. Scout with a flash really finishes it off the kill.
It might not be an assassin, but that was the sort of decisive move we expected from Scout, given his reputation and solo queue ranking.
Uh-oh. Well, Misfortune could use bullet time right here and defend this, and Will over the wall gets a nice big bunch of damage onto 3 members of SKT. Duke gonna lash his tongue out to try and deter any follow-up. Trace still on the run, but he doesn't have the range to deal with this, so it's been a back and forth ARAM here in the mid lane. Jin Air looking for the second turret, and we do have SKT nearly taking down the outer of Jin Air.
To be clear, this is exactly what Jin Air want. With triple AD carry, they just want to push down structures. They want to keep it in the mid lane. They should get this turret now.
Oh, nope, can't quite get it. Kuzan takes a turret hit, then turns around to finish it off, but their tier 1 is dangerously low. They need to keep that up just to make sure that they don't have too many threats to their backline.
SKT, the waiting game's almost over. You can see that Thornmail is just about 1,000 gold away from being completed for Duke, and that is when it's going to be his job to Abyssal Voyage, I guess by himself, into the backline and just try and disrupt this Jin Air trio.
This game is too funny.
It's great.
It's hilarious.
This is what we were hoping for all week. We saw all those wave clear wars with KT. KT were not playing exciting League of Legends, but it was very effective. This Jin Air lineup, they can take a win here. It would be an upset with an asterisk next to it, but still an upset.
I think that you and I are the only ones who are enjoying this 2-kill game, Papa Smithy.
I mean, it's got a Graves top in it. I'm pretty stoked, I gotta say.
I find it quite entertaining myself.
That's what we put the double color together for. Games like this.
Jin Air cheese. Let's go.
I'm surprised they kept their cheese identity with GBM out of the lineup. Someone else has clearly got a mind for cheese on this team.
Apparently it's Trace. Okay, well, SKT moves forward once again. There's another nice pillar just gonna knock them off the objective, and they're going to intercept the minion wave right before it hits. No chance to get in there and deal damage. Duke and Trace Mano y mano in the bottom side once again.
What does this side lane 1v1 evolve into? With the Thornmail, will Duke just have an objectively easy time pushing Trace out of lane? Now, catching up to him is the difficult part, but you do a lot of damage when you build full tank. Your health scaling on damage if you're Tahm Kench, so Graves with no lifesteal and only 20 armor penetration. Theoretically, there is a future where Graves can't stand up 1v1 to Tahm Kench.
I think he has to just buy a lifesteal item next. It's really the only option that he's going to have. Blank takes a chunk here, trying to secure the red buff for Bang, and there's the smite. Who got it? Looks like it was Winged in the end who grabbed the red. So successfully keeping it out of Blank or Bang's hands.
Duke is grouped. He could get the Abyssal Voyage in here. Would have to be a teleport from Trace, who's farming. He's an AD carry, so I guess that makes sense. Poking his head and getting some raptors.
He's on wave clear duty. Just comes in, cues the wave, and then walks away.
Not a team with wave clear problems.
No,
Janair.
certainly not. Duke now moving back towards the bottom side.
And every free objective, the freest ones, are maybe the bot lane in a turret is down. So they've definitely had a compelling first 30 minutes. It's just, how does this story end for Janair?
It ends with 5 dragon stacks, Papa Smithy. That's where they're going, I think, at this point.
Will the final act actually pay off?
Well, 5 dragon stacks are really good on this many AD carries because
12% more AD for everyone.
Well, you could also just poke them with the true damage repeatedly. There's not really any escaping the true damage burn.
Oh, true damage, make it rain. I mean, I'd still rage at the Thunderlord's proc at the end of the true damage, but regardless. Kuzan's got the package.
Looking for some poke. Start this one off. Duke going to not be injured at all. Thornmail has been completed.
Well,
package actually used on the retreat. Wolf takes a huge amount of damage and nearly dies immediately. Has to get Wild Growth.
Janair should re-engage now. They can do whatever they want. Wild Growth down. Wolf basically a sitting duck.
Well, he still has his ultimate, and he is back at 50% HP, so all is not lost, but the poke coming in is still massive, and that's dragon number 3. But we're still looking at the earliest, basically a 43-minute 5 dragon stack.
I mean, Duke can't really get much tankier by then, to be fair.
That's true.
He's getting close to the item cap. It's going to be Spirit Visage into Guardian Angel, I guess, would be perhaps the best last pickup. Can you imagine killing a 6-item Guardian Angel, Tahm Kench?
They don't have to kill him, Papa Smithy.
That's true. They kill everyone else.
They're fighting a PvE game right now.
It's true.
It's
the
them.
E is losing.
It's them versus Dragon and Baron and poking SK Telecom.
What would the look on your face be if this game ended with this kill score?
I would be so happy.
Monte Cristo special. Usually a sandwich, but today, a cheese strategy from Janair.
Well, there's lots of cheese in the sandwich too, so
I can see. It's been served up in front of me.
Oh! Oh, they got it. Bang with the Lulu shield. Finally gets in range to hit the last little bit of damage onto the mid lane turret.
Golf clap from the crowd.
Well, it's 33 minutes, and that was actually SKT's first turn of the game. Blank is going to have to flash over the wall and burn his ultimate. Kuzan's damage absolutely insane.
Now, this is what I want to know about. Talk to me about Trace versus Duke. As far as I can tell, Duke literally laughs at his damage.
They chucked out the jungler, so they're going to TP in immediately. They're going to be able to burn this Baron down very quickly.
But they're squishy.
They are very squishy, but there is no jungler to secure this objective, and that's going to be Winged, taking it with the smite. Kindred not here yet, and they are going to have to back out. Wolf getting quite low, and on the run, and he's going to fall. Pilot gets the second kill of the game. Very unfortunately that we had more kills. I have to say, Duke uses his flash just to get over the pillar. And now they're going to try and follow this one up, but there's just almost no way they kill Duke. So they have to kill everyone else instead. They find Scout, and Trace will finish him with the help of bullet time. Duke will teleport with a flourish and a bow.
No one other than Lulu should be on the same screen as Duke. He just buys time, he walks around, he can't die.
Okay.
But everyone else can.
Well, the Baron is complete. The chunk out on Blank was successful. As we take a look at this fight, Bang tries to use the culling, but it's just not going to be good enough.
You can't give this team half a second free time at the Baron. Triple AD carry. We knew the jungler wouldn't be there. Good decisive call from Jin Air, which has never been a word. We've been able to talk about them stylistically, and then they chase Duke.
They do. The great Duke chase was on. We're not going to rewatch that, as hilarious as it was.
Riveting.
3 kills now. We have an exciting game with more than 1 kill every 10 minutes, Papa Smith.
This is the sort of action we promise you in OGN Champions Korea. Well, turrets die fast.
Yeah, turrets certainly do. It's a pretty nightmare scenario for SK Telecom because they can't clear the waves and they will just get poked. They are more than likely
what is
going
Lucian doing taking red buff against triple AD carry Baron buff?
Well,
he got the red buff.
He did it. He definitely did get that red buff, but he lost an inhibitor, unfortunately for him, and now Jin Air trying to move into mid and repeat that same feat, but man, do they have such a fast way of dealing with these turrets now that they have this Baron buff. Remember, too, that they're closing in on a 5th Dragon stack ever so slowly, 3, but they'll probably get the next one as well now that they have the inhibitor down.
You think Coma's notebook entry for this game will be a picture or words?
I love this. This is definitely the funniest game of the week. So back to sieging.
Who's going to kill those siege minions? Where's the banner of command? That's what I want to know.
All right, Bang going to try and take some damage onto Kuzan as they retreat back all the way.
So this siege kite comp where they can just throw out Make It Rain, they can throw out the Trundle Pillar, that's actually the whole lane.
Yeah, honestly, Che is, for me, the MVP of this game so far. His pillars have been so good.
But isn't it amazing that literally Make It Rain and Trundle Pillar next to each other is probably the width of the lane?
Yes. You can't defend your turret against that either. Not with 3 AD carries, just autoing.
Has Pilot used his ult more than twice this game? I don't know if he has. It's not really been ulti.
Yeah, he's used it twice. Once at Baron, once in the mid lane to save the turret. He should be using it more.
That's true.
To clear out some of these turrets.
He's just trying to get in range of Make It Rain, Monty, to slow people. Oh, this game is so silly. But it's not over.
It isn't over. I mean, SK Telecom with 1 fight could turn this around. It just seems unlikely that they're ever going to be able to engage. Baron buff is gone, however. But they do have to deal with super minions. I guess it's Tom Kench going to be face tanking them well away from the rest of his base.
We may actually have a record where we might have a game end with 2 members of the enemy team on a 0-0-0 score.
That would be absolutely crazy.
2 people, not 1, 2.
Jin Air just refuses to fight SKT. Continuing. 15 seconds until the next Dragon, though. They're probably just going to take this turret and then move over to Dragon to give themselves another nice win condition. Meanwhile, Duke has actually succeeded in pushing back the minion wave.
If you noticed, the one thing about Devour is that Devour does literally 2,000 damage to a siege minion.
Yes, it does.
So he's surprised, despite not having true wave clear, he's very fast at dealing with specifically Baroned up minion waves.
The one thing I regret about this game, Papa Smithy, is there is no banner of command on Jin Air.
That's what I'm saying. Who's going to build it, though? Trundle has no AP scaling. Corky, please.
This game is giving me great joy.
The missed opportunity of the banner of command may haunt us. Honestly, no banner command to me is the equivalent of SKT not winning Worlds undefeated.
Can you
so close, but so far.
Can you imagine how mind-numbing it must have been for Jin Air to actually practice this strategy to the degree that they would need to play it against SK Telecom?
And credit to the Korean Scrim opponents not complaining about how mind-numbing it was to play against it. Wouldn't that be the story you told people, like, my God, Jin Air has this strategy. I can't. And Trace, all those games practicing Gravetop just for this.
Well, it's not like it was a secret in solo queue either. They could have known that this was coming.
They didn't know this was coming this way, though.
No, you didn't know it was coming this way. You certainly did not.
EDG tried this strategy, a similar strategy, but perfected by Jin Air Green Wings.
Well, we'll see. They have yet to win this game in spite of a very large gold lead. Abyssal Voyage going to come through, and we're going to see if Duke can make it work. Flash used already to get out of range, and the disengage too strong. Bang trying to catch up. He is slowly doing damage, but it's just not enough to force a fight as Jin Air refuse to actually combat SK Telecom. Minute to another Baron, and Duke will be on his way, trundling down to the bottom side to clear out some more super minions.
I mean, can you really force as SKT? How do you force against Trundle Pillar, Make It Rain with Alistair as initiation? Arguably, eventually a Tahm Kench?
And they only blew one flash onto Kuzan.
He'll have 2 if he gets the package.
Exactly.
So it's all right. Well, it's 40 minutes and we got 4 kills.
Yes, we've actually gone down, so 1 kill in over 10 minutes now in this game.
The dream.
It's my dream, not the Smithy. Never fight your opponent.
Fight their structures.
Fight their structures. But this is how Jin Air used to play with poke comps too, back with GBM. And they lost a lot of those games by
Throwing at Baron.
throwing at Barrett in the late game.
Throwing at 5th Dragon.
Yeah. Well, Dragon number 5 will be an option in just a few minutes here. We've got about 3 left on that. And Trace caught out a little bit in front, going to get cold. Has to burn a flash. So SKT slowly moving through the summoners.
Now what about Baron?
Jin Air.
Trace doesn't have. Trace has lifesteal. I feel like he should.
has
There's
TP.
no camps either. Yeah, he can TP in. Picking up the Baron would do a lot to buy more time.
Jay does not have to face check that. He has Scuttle Crab. Mistake right there. They had a pink ward on the Baron and Scuttle Crab. There's no reason to face check that brush.
Graves returns, doesn't have to use his teleport. Could potentially go and push up this bottom lane wave, but given how squishy this team is, it's very risky to teleport in, especially as an AD carry, but in general, because any picks and this team fight falls apart.
Well, I mean, Bang has to be a hero here. Blank is effectively useless, and they have Frozen Heart onto Trundle. So it's a very effective because Lulu just not going to be doing a whole hell of a lot in this late game. So Bang has to continually run around with Whimsy and be the hero that his team needs.
Well, he's got Captain's Boots, we talked about that before. Smart pickup to help his team get closer to give him more shields. Monty's literally dying at the hilarity of 42 minutes of farming and pushing.
I love it.
But it hasn't been equal farming. It's been very one-sided farming.
Che actually going to get a pillar here, but a lot of damage comes through from Bang. He doesn't get any more flashes, though. But they are winning the slow summoner spell war. And now SKT going to go for a Baron.
They have a fast Baron.
Yep, they do, and they're going to try and take this one out. Baron now 4,000 HP. Bang is low, though. Wing going to come into the pit, but Kindred gets it. Bullet time over the Baron pit, but it's just not enough. Jay is already ulted, and they're going to try and poke this, make it rain. Bang going to take it. A lot of damage, and Jin Air still moving forward, but SK Telecom successfully gets the Baron and gets out. So far with all 5 members broken apart by a Trundle Pillar. And Jin Air, they still want this, but they're getting poked. Bang back at full HP right now, having life stolen. He's gonna dodge and deal a lot of damage to Kuzan's Corki. Now they're going to look for the re-engage. Culling coming through, going to hit Che, but he has a Frozen Heart, not that much damage. Abyssal Voyage through. They try and tie up Pilot, but no one can actually fight in this game. Bang once again charging forward, and there he goes, he gets Kuzan finally! Bang, an absolute hero this game as they try to close out or just do something with this Baron buff. Bang finally, at long last, gets a kill. He forced the flash like 4 minutes ago and then picks up the kill in the end.
It's insane the parallels to that CJ versus SKT playoff match. That was another Bang-centric comp. He was on Lucian. They had Faker on Lulu in the mid lane. And to the nth degree, it's completely shown here. Bang has to do it all himself. His teammates, Blank especially, can get nowhere near the fight.
What an important kill, too, because Kuzan will have spawned by the time Dragon number 5 for Jin Air comes onto the map. So they effectively deny the Baron. They actually take out the Dragon, too, unless there's something really crazy that goes down from Jin Air. And they're going to get more time in this game.
You can understand why they're trying to force a fight here. Bang was at one point chunked out and Lulu ult is down, but they over-chase. And once Bang finally starts autoing with the effects of the Lulu passive as well, the Pix is doing a lot of damage. He is obviously doing immense damage. the Abyssal Voyage into the back line. Obviously, you can be as Rambo as you like if you're Duke. You're not going to die anytime soon. But it's 5th Dragon time.
It is Winged, has his eyes on the prize, has a ward in the pit, but looks like he's out of Q range. Bang, taking a few autos over the top. They're going to go for it with a steal with bullet time. No, Kindred. Blank finds the smite. Meanwhile, TP in from Trace. Going to go ahead and knock Duke out of the competition. So Baron buff secured by SKT and the 5th Dragon taken away. So Jin Air has to wait for a few more minutes before they do anything. And we're looking at what is probably going to be our longest game so far of this season, Papa Smithy.
Any kills come through could really influence this game. The death timers are so long. 45 minutes in. Bang the MVP. All on his back. That's the reality, especially every time we saw Easyhoon step up, it was about Bang stepping up, and he's doing it with aplomb, even though he kind of had to watch. He didn't really get to play League of Legends till about 3 to 4 minutes ago.
It's also unbelievable, his balls, because he's going up against 380 carries and playing the front line. Sure, he's got the Lulu, but that is hard to do.
Oh, you need to know damage ranges, you need to know your potential output, how tanky and how effectively tanky you are when you factor in the Lulu, but the Whimsy goes on Bang and he makes things done. He's done it in the past and he's doing it again now.
Well, you have to keep such good track of the cooldown timers too. We saw how he was dodging around Corky Qs in that last little engagement after they took the Baron.
It's worth noting that none of these 3 ADs are standing auto attack dealers. Now Lucian doesn't normally function as one, but with all these shields, with the speed that he has, the fact that he's getting the auto attacks in and has auto attack speed, has attack speed and other things itemized for, is the big difference between him and the 380 carries on the side of Jin.
Well, Trace has finished his GA now, so there's another factor to consider in some of these team fights. Should Trace go down, he can get right back into the mix, and he is surprisingly tanky for an AD carry, the combination of his quick draw passive.
Isn't it fun to define SKT's other members in the context of what they do for Bang? Alistair will use the captain's boots to get closer to Bang to heal him. Then you look at Lulu, who has obviously 3 or 4 things. Blank's just trying to close it. It's not to do damage in AD carry, just to ult.
Yeah, his only purpose right now is ulting.
And if Duke can't annoy anyone, he just eats the Lucian. So Lucian literally can't die. It's not possible.
This game is amazing. All right, 47 minutes in now.
3 AD carries versus 1 immortal AD carry.
It really just comes down to these Barons and whether or not Jin Air is able to successfully get a 5th Dragon. They don't have a lot of options when it comes to split pushing, even though they do have that open inhibitor right now. It's simply too dangerous.
And this game could go 30 minutes, it could go 5. A pick basically ends the game, as has been the way on this patch, and bang. So fast.
Walks up, it does take a little bit of damage through his shield. But that's the thing that can break this wide open, because the 5th Dragon, the burn on the poke from Jin Air is not going to be something that SKT can deal with.
Now with a greater than 2 turret advantage, the minions in bottom lane will be auto pushing to the base. So that's one of the big changes in the 2016 patch, is these minions auto push. So consistently we will see the minions pushing in, slowly of course, to the inhibitor, so there's smaller ranges for siege if you're SKT. Time is just that much more constricted. That's why Duke has to go literally pay lip service to the minion wave.
He does, and now a minute out until yet another Baron in this game, as Trace is sent over to clear out the minion wave, and he'll take some of the jungle with him, and it's going to be curious to see how these teams want to play around Baron. Because Jin Air has options. They could try and stall this out and trade a Baron for a 5th Dragon stack if they can buy enough time for themselves. SKT has a choice to try and rush it and then take the 5th Dragon again, and that would mean that Jin Air has to be there to contest, and there's no vision there for them right now.
The first goal should be trying to ensure that these timers are not staggered, so you at least have the option of trading. So ensure that the 5th Dragon and Baron are live at the same time. Don't let SKT rush it down. And then, as you mentioned, it's all about posturing around both of those objectives.
Yeah, they are going to get some vision in the brush right now and push SKT back. So there's a minute that Jin Air has to work with, and if they can stop SKT from taking the Baron in the next minute, but Jay's going to get chunked, has to run out. Culling nearly going to kill him. Blank moving forward, does have that Yomu's active, and that is a big poke damage. Now they're going to try and charge up the middle. and Make It Rain will slow them down. The pack of Jin Air members trying to get through their base gate right now to defend.
Jay doesn't have time to recall. He throws down a pillar and tries to, but SKT back up.
This could be the very crucial moment in this game. Che has to get out of base. He doesn't even have time to heal right now. That's how desperate Jin Air is. Jin Air going to be walking in blind to this Baron. That's what started. They have to go. It's at 4,000 HP, and here we go. There's the bullet time over the side. Blank nearly dead. Does pop the Kindred ult, but they're trapped in the pit. Che now in the back. Duke nearly gone. Kuzan in the pit himself. Pilot taking a huge amount
Duke's
of damage.
dead.
But they get him. They kill Duke finally. It's a double kill now, and 3 members dead. Bang on the run. Kuzan is just going to destroy him. Triple kill
Jin Air
for
win.
Pilot, and that's the ace. Jin Air is just going to move into the enemy base in a 50-minute game with only 10 kills, and Jin Air successfully run this wacky AD carry push comp for a win.
It is insane that they picked up the victory, but in tunneling in, so many members fell so low to the bullet time. Blank tried to dash out the back. Lee Sin was there for the flank. Jin Air, they pulled a rabbit out of the hat. Okay, it's against Scout, and it's against Blank, but Jin Air win.
They do. They're going to take the first game of the season here. Their first victory. Can they close out the series as they kill the Nexus? That was a fun one. Jin Air coming in with a plan and managing to execute it. Bang, nearly turning that game around though.
That's the great thing about best of 3 is that now SKT can go back to the drawing board. They can start the bans up. They can ensure this doesn't happen again. And who knows, maybe we've got some double world champions stepping back into the lineup for game 2.
Yeah, I think that is exactly what we're going to see. But that bullet time from Pilot was huge in the end. I mean, Scout and Blank were pretty much dead just after the 1 bullet time, and then they were able to focus down Duke to finish it off.
One time where they had an equal contest where they couldn't play around Bang. Instead, all 5 members were taking on 5 with no ability to kite back. Bang died late, but it didn't matter because everyone else was completely exploited. Literally, Scout and Blank took 90% of their health from the bullet time.
Yeah. That's the danger. Even though they chunked out Che, the bullet time proved too much on a 6-item MF. And Trace barely living 2 at the end of that fight. Did have a heal though, and of course his GA, should he fall low enough. And that means we are going to be heading into our second game between Jin Air and SK Telecom in a few minutes. Will we see Faker and Bengi come in? I think we will.
It's time to bring in the MVPs.